noise!
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkinstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funkin' Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkinstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk, shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funkin' Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkinstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. Hey, before we get started with today's show, I just want to draw your attention to new merchandise. Funkin' Stuff and Truth and Rhythm designs are in, and they look pretty darn cool. So show your support, help support the program, and show off some stylish merchandise and apparel. Only at the Funkin' Stuff store. I am pleased to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership, Guitarist Fred Jenkins, longtime member of the Gap Band, as well as Rick James' 1980s musical family. That included Gap's 3 through 5 albums that contained funk jams like Burn Rubber, Humpin, Early in the Morning, You Dropped a Bomb on Me, Talkin Back, and Party Train, along with mellow classics like Yearning for Your Love and Outstanding. His other recording credits include Tyrone Davis, Janet Jackson, and Pebbles. Fred, thank you so much for joining me. Where are you coming to us from today?
Los Angeles, California.
And I don't know if you know, I am a native from Los Angeles. I'm wearing a Lakers cap as we talk, so...
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Moved away in 2006, but, you know, that's where my heart still is. So, have you always been in Los Angeles, or were you from originally?
Chicago, originally.
And so how long in LA about?
Since 1979.
Okay, so yeah, good amount of time for most of your music career, sounds like.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's jump back to those earlier days in Chicago, Midwest. You know, how did you first get into music and why guitar?
Well, my whole family is musically oriented. My grandmom played guitar. My mother was a singer. My oldest sister played guitar. And my oldest brother played guitar. So guitar's been an instrument that's been like a commonality throughout my whole family.
And did you ever have any lessons or just kind of learned it on your own?
Well, I had some lessons here and there. My baby brother taught me how, and I started buying books and I taught myself, and as well as listening to records, you know, how that goes, and learning to play by ear, as well as learning to read.
And you started out on acoustic or you jumped right into an electric?
Electric, then acoustic, back to electric.
Do you still remember your first guitar?
No, it's been quite a while. I don't remember that. No, I don't.
Usually it seems like everyone says, they got some Sears guitar or something like that as their first one.
Yeah, it was probably something like that. I don't even remember the name of the guitar.
So what kinds of music were you first getting into?
Wow, blues was a big part of my influence around the house. My mom played blues all the time, jazz, and a little rock and roll.
Who are some of your favorite artists?
Wow, that's a big question. Jazz-wise, I would say it's George Benson, Pat Martino. That's just two that I could think of right offhand. And rock and roll, of course, Jimi Hendrix, B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters.
And when did you first get into a band experience?
I would say when I was in high school, we had us a little band. I don't remember the name of it. My brother was the lead singer. I played guitar. And some other guys. We formed us a group and we started playing around town, some of the talent shows or whatever.
And that was in Chicago?
Yep.
Yeah. So, Chicago has such a great music history with, blues, like, of course, the greats, Chicago and blues, and then also, rock and soul with, Chicago and Rufus and Earth, Wind and Fire, and so many greats came through there.
That's right. Absolutely. Minnie Riperton.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I had, what's his name? He sang with the Rotary, Minnie Riperton's group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sidney Barnes. Yeah, Sidney Barnes was on the show. Was with that
Really?
group. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I didn't know that. I know Sydney.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still doing it. God bless him,
I haven't spoke to Sydney in years. I would love to see him.
Well, he's actually in my state, North Carolina, but he's over more in the mountains area, but not too far from me.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, Scott, what instruments do you play?
Well, I dabble, I'm more of a kind of a frustrated musician. That's why I got so much into being a DJ and a journalist and doing these interviews. But I do play some guitar, and I played saxophone in school, alto sax.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you got into a band, were you doing talent shows, high school dances, a lot of cover songs? What was it like?
Cover songs, talent shows, wherever we could get work at, to get the name out there.
Do you remember the name of that band?
Oh, man. No, I don't. I don't remember. I don't remember the name.
Oh, man. So you didn't get the name out there so good that you remember it now.
I know, right.
So do you remember the types of, were you playing mostly top 40 or dance tunes or what kind of stuff?
Top 40. Whoever was popular, we would learn their material and, rehearse it. So we had some gigs coming up. We would have, a repertoire to choose from.
And how comfortable were you on stage?
Well, I was very comfortable until I got into the big stages. That was a whole nother thing.
So were you kind of an outgoing guy, or did you mostly play rhythm or take solos or what?
No, I was kind of to myself mostly, reading and studying, learning.
And what about your playing? Were you mostly hanging in rhythm, or were you doing some lead parts too, or what?
Rhythm, mainly rhythm.
So how did things progress from there, Fred? How did you get your first what you might call professional job?
Well, make a long story short, my girlfriend at the time, she lived near a place called SIR, a studio rehearsal place, and there was a restaurant where her and her girlfriend used to go and eat all the time. And so one particular day, she decided not to go to work. So I said, I'm going to come over. When I got there, she decided she was going to go to work for half a day. So we would walk to where she worked at because we didn't live that far from downtown in Chicago. And so on our way to her job, we saw a bus outside this rehearsal place. She said, there's the bus I was telling you about. So I said, let's go and see who it is. So Charlie Wilson was walking off the bus. And so I said, hey, man, how you doing? We introduced ourselves. He said, what do you do? I said, I play guitar. He said, wow, we've been there for a whole week auditioning guitar players. You got a cassette? I said, yeah, but I got to go home to get it. And so I didn't want to leave my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and go get a cassette to give to a stranger. But she talked me into doing it, so I went, got the cassette. And I went back to pick her up from work. When I picked her up, we got back there, was finishing rehearsal. He said, hey, man, can you go home and learn the show? I'm staying at the such and such hotel, and can you be there around 10 o'clock? I said, sure. I went home, I learned the show, and came back to the hotel the next day around 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30, and I had the audition for him and an audition for Lonnie Simmons in the hotel. And so he said, man, I was thinking about if we could get him on the show with us tonight. Lonnie said, it's okay with me if the other guys say it's okay. So I met him at the stadium. I'd never been backstage before. And so my Ivory Brothers was on stage doing a sound check. So they said, okay, Gap Band, come on up. You got 15 minutes to sound check. And so I went up there, and they plugged in. They said, play something. I started playing something, and everybody went crazy. So after the concert, I'm standing around wondering whether or not I got the gig. So the guy walks up to me, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, man, can you read tonight? I said, who are you? He said, I'm the road manager down Alexander. I said, sure. I got to go home and get my clothes. So they drove me home. Woke up my mom and told her I got the gig. And so I left Chicago and been gone ever since.
Wow. That's quite a whirlwind, incredible.
I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you must have been you must have been just pinching yourself or something.
I didn't know what to think at the time because it was totally different, new to me. Because I never, like I said, a totally different environment, new people. Everything was new. Never been on a big stage like that in front of all those people. So naturally you're gonna be afraid at first until you get used to it. So that's what happened with myself. So we just came back after the tour with the Ivory Brothers SOS band. We came back to Los Angeles to the Total Experience studio, and I met everybody there, and we started doing some recordings. But before we did some recordings, we were on tour. We had a lady bus driver. Her name was Bernice. And we stopped over. The bus broke down in Memphis. So we stopped over. So when we were in Memphis, they said, hey, man, why don't we just rehearse while we're here? We said, okay. So when we started rehearsing, Oliver Scott came in with this song called Yearning for Your Love. And the intro, ding, and the guitar, they loved it. So as soon as we got back to California, we recorded it. Me, Robert Wilson, Oliver Scott, Ronnie Kaufman, Glenn Nightingale, Ronnie Wilson. I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Wow. So that tour you went on with them was like 1980. Is that about when?
Yeah, 1979, 1980.
So that was did they have Burn Rubber out yet? Do you remember?
No, it was Oops Upside Your Head.
Okay. Yeah. So they were just starting to really pick up momentum then.
Right, exactly. But what happened, the reason why they were looking for guitar players, because was having to take a cut and pay, and a lot of the cats didn't want to take that cut and pay because, especially Glenn, when he went to London, when he take American dollars and exchange them to pounds, he ain't got nothing. So he said, "Man, I can't do it." So they were looking for new guitar players, and I just happened to be there at the right time, and got the gig.
And what had become of your brother at that point? Because you said you were in a band together.
Well, he kind of just stayed away in the background. He's no longer with us right now, unfortunately. But he was very supportive of me, very, very much, and happy because, me as a family, started doing some other things.
So when you got picked up for that Whirlwind tour, did you know much of their material beforehand?
I learned everything that night. When I went home with the cassette, I learned everything, the vocals, everything that night, the whole show.
Wow. You must be a quick study. Yeah. You must be a quick study, Fred.
I think I am pretty much. Because during that time, I was writing chord charts and lead sheets for people that needed that work done. So I was, used to using my ears and everything as far as my craft is concerned, writing and, doing whatever musically.
And how old were you?
About 18, 19 years old.
And had you ever traveled at all before that?
No. Mm-mm. No, just basically around Chicago, in clubs or whatever, talent shows.
Wow. So before that happened, did you have dreams that you would be in a group like that, or what did you think would become of your music career at that, early on?
Well, we all have high hopes, but they say study to show yourself approved. So I've studied my whole life, and still to this day I still study, not music but other things, science, whatever.
So you're a bookworm.
Kind of like that, I would say. I love to read, love to study, love learning.
What were your first impressions of the Wilson brothers?
Wow. It was different. That's all I could say. It was very different. I'd never been around, quote unquote rock stars. When me with those guys, they had already been in the limelight for years. So you're looking at an infant around, grown ups. But I learned a lot and learned it quick. I catch on pretty quick, I would say.
And you said that the Isley Brothers and SOS Band were also out there. Did you get to, mingle and meet those people too?
Yeah. Because the tours normally will last like 3 to 6 months. But normally like 3 months. Be on tour for like 3 months. You come off tour, be off for work for about, I'd say over to a month. Then we go into recording. And after doing recording, then we'd be off about another month and go back into rehearsal. After rehearsal, we go back on tour.
You reminded me, I saw the Isley Brothers right around then at the LA Forum, but it was with Grand Central Station. It wasn't with the Gap Band.
Okay.
Yeah. So, do you have a particular memory that really stands out, especially from that particular tour?
No, like I said, everything was brand new to me. I had never been on no big old stage playing in front of thousands of people before, so it was like, wow. Like I said, it was like an infant around grown-ups as far as musical maturity. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Learning the ropes, on the job training.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Had you ever played with musicians of that caliber before that? I mean, I'm sure they were.
No, not really. Not at that caliber. Like I said, it was a whole new world for me, man.
Yeah.
A whole new world. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was it like when you got in the studio for the first time? You mentioned recording that track, but what was the experience like for you being in the studio?
Well, wow. How can I answer that? Being in the studio, man, I don't know how to answer that. You got to give me another question.
Well, how much direction were you given, and did you feel intimidated, or were you just, very business, let's get it done, or, what was it like?
A little bit of all of that. Let's get it done. You only got one take. Can you go back and overdub? All of that. It's just a learning experience, really. Everything is totally new to me.
And who was mostly giving direction in those sessions?
Ronnie Wilson, Charlie Wilson, Lonnie Simmons, and Rudy Taylor.
Is there any one of them in the band in particular, Fred, that really just impressed you as a musician, or as a arranger, that kind of thing?
All of them. Oliver Scott, Ronnie Wilson, Robert Wilson. Like I said, everybody. It was totally new to me, man. Everything was new to me. Like a baby newborn.
What was it like?
Seriously.
Well, considering that, what was it like when you first heard something you played on the radio?
Wow. That was a very, very happy day of my life when I heard myself. And everybody's, and man, I hear you, brother. You sound great. And the compliments that you would get from people. And so it was just a good feeling to be a part of something that's great. And know that you played a part in that.
I had, I don't know if you're aware, but I had Oliver and Moon Calhoun were on the show a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you ended up playing, if I'm not mistaken, on Humpin' and Early in the Morning, and You Dropped a Bomb on Me, Talkin Back, Party Train, all those songs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an impressive group of songs there. I mean, those are a lot of classics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
And you went back
Still
out.
is today.
Yes, they've stood up the test of time for sure.
Yep.
And you went back out on tour subsequently also with them?
Yeah. Went back out with them until a point where Val Young told me she knew this guy named Rick James, and we could go to his studio and do some recording. So we made some material on a cassette and submitted it, and Rick, let us come to Buffalo to record. And so we did our album there, and that album took off and did very well.
So were you still part of the Total Experience camp and the Gap Band then, or had you moved on from them, or what happened with that relationship?
I still was. Still was.
How did things change for you after? I mean, when you went on subsequent tours, you weren't the newborn, baby learning anymore, right? You got some experience in your belt.
It was old hat. It was old hat during that time. Yeah. And I really like being on stage, playing in front of people, and response that you get from the audience. How they would show you how they appreciate what you're doing, and all of that.
Fred, can you share any very memorable experience from any of the touring you did with the Gap Band where maybe it was just an incredible night for some reason, or maybe something funny happened, or maybe, the power went out, or who knows what?
Well, it was, every year during that time when I was with the group, every state would have like a little festival every year, like a food fest. It would like start from Thursday through Sunday, and every day they would have entertainment. There was some place that we were at in the South or in the Midwest that had like 1 million people. I never performed in front of 1 million people in my whole life. And the next day it was in the paper. So I said, wow, 1 million people. 1 million people in that one setting.
It's something when you touch that many, right?
Yeah, for real.
So on those like funk festivals that were so popular, who are a couple of the people that you shared the stage with that you were really impressed by?
A group called Midnight Star. I'm very impressed with them. SOS Band. That's what I could think of offhand. Midnight Star, SOS Band. We got to be real close friends.
Yeah, I've heard that the Midnight Star especially just rehearsed like crazy, and they were really, really tight in their show.
They was off the chain. That group, man. Ooh-wee. Yeah.
Now, was the Gap Band headlining most of those shows?
Yes, we were headlining all of those shows. We didn't start out as headliners. We started out like opening up, but we started gaining so much momentum during that time period that we became headliners overnight. It seemed like.
I got to mention, Fred, I think, Gap Band 4 especially, that's just my favorite. That album was just tremendous from start to finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one, of course, for listeners and viewers that had Outstanding and You Dropped a Bomb on Me and Early in the Morning. It was just full of hits and just, and also just
back to back.
Showed the versatility too, had the good ballads, the good funk stuff, everything.
Mm-hmm. A little country mix in there too.
What kind of like extra little flavor did you feel like you gave the material?
Wow. I would like to say whatever the material needed, I would try to supply that. Just like when you coming up with a song, I may hear a word or two, and then a whole song will come to my head from all the instruments, what the sound. Now the difficult part became trying to find the right sound that you was hearing in your mind for that particular title, and that whatever the textures were that in your mind's eye you felt that song deserved. Trying to go through all the sounds to find the right sound that fit that song. That gives it what the ingredients that it needs to be what it is.
Did the Wilson brothers make the band members feel inclusive, like you were really part of a whole team, or was it kind of like an us than them kind of thing?
No, it's a family. Ronnie Wilson thought of the name Gap Band, said God's appointed people, because everybody was filled with the Spirit making their contributions to the one thing and making it a whole.
And did you also play on Janet Jackson's? I guess that was maybe her.
Man, yes, I did. Her very first album. Yes, I did.
Yeah. Did you get to meet her then?
No, I never got a chance to meet her, but I did some recording. The guy that was doing the producing, Jerry Weaver, was a good friend of mine, and he brought me in on that project. But I never got a chance to meet her.
Do you remember who was producing on that one?
I think Leon Silvers, Jerry Weaver. I don't remember who else.
But it's definitely before Jam and Lewis got a hold of her, right?
Yeah, man. Wow.
And just looking at your credits, I see also you played with Rick Dees, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I did something with on the Rick D show. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah.
And so, so you mentioned connecting with Val, and she's been on the show too. Really enjoyed talking to her. And so what was it like when you first met Rick James?
Oh, boy. Wow. A giant, man. A giant. That man he would give you the shirt off his back. That was the most generous man that I ever met in my life. You know, he didn't have no ego. Like he thought he was better than you. And none of that. And his whole family was like that, man. The Wilson brothers' family was like that. Everybody they took you in, you know. You're part of their family. And they believe in sharing. That's how Rick was.
And that was about 1984, is that right? Or
yeah.
So he was already a full superstar by then. I mean, he was at the height of his success, really.
Oh, man, he was doing it. He was doing it. Yeah, he was really doing it. Well, like I say, he was a very generous man. He would give you the shirt off his back if he felt you needed it. He wasn't the monster that everybody made him out to be. You would have to know him in order to come to the real conclusion as to what the nature of how this man was. He's just like Charlie Wilson. Charlie Wilson, the same way. Ronnie, Robert, all of them. I never worked with anybody that was selfish, I would say. If it was, they didn't show you they were selfish.
Did you happen to catch that new Rick James documentary?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Of course, you know, we know how it turns out, but man, what a bright burning star he was.
Man, you have no idea. Like I said, he was not a selfish man at all. He believed in treating his people properly. When the band was not on tour, the band got a check every week. When the band was not on tour, the band got a check every week. That's how generous this man was. I don't know nobody like that. Nobody. But that's how Rick was.
What exposure did you have to him musically?
Well, wow, that's a big question. Rick was the kind of guy that he would go in the studio, he'd play all the instruments, you know, come and have Tom fly, or somebody put it down a drum track for him, and he would start building on that. Then he'd say, Tom, give me the mic. He'd go in, he would actually do his recording demo vocals on the track within the studio, not outside the studio. Then he'd give everybody a tape, say, hey, man, here, go home and learn your parts, and such day we're going to come together and record, like a band.
And so did you get to see him actually, composing it all or playing anything? Or
A little bit. That's how I know what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I caught him a couple times, you know. He might not be the best cat at each instrument, but he knew what the hell he wanted, and he knew how to communicate that to you, what he was expecting from that particular instrument, how he wanted it played from A to Z.
So, Fred, what were some of the highlights of projects that you worked on that were part of Rick James's, group of acts?
Well, I mentioned Val. I mentioned Processing the Do-Rags. I mentioned working with him a little bit before he passed on. I worked with him a little bit. It was, everything is a learning experience. Whatever I put my mind to, I try to be the best at it. Whatever it is, I try to be the best at whatever I put my mind to doing.
Did you end up doing any live shows with Val or any of the other acts?
No, unfortunately, no. I never did any shows with Val live.
Well, her album definitely got some attention and play, but Processing the Do-Rags kind of went by the wayside a little bit.
I know. It's probably because of lack of support. Basically, that's the only thing I could think of, lack of support. Then whatever. Go ahead.
Did Rick or anybody communicate to you the vision for that particular act? I mean, some people thought maybe it was sort of like his version of The Time or something like that.
No, he never mentioned anything like that to me. What his vision was concerning that particular group, he just wanted a doo-wop group. And so he called them Processing the Do-Rags. He's bringing it back to old days, to present.
Right. So when you were doing that, were you continuing to, tour with other acts, or what was going on, around the mid-'80s for you?
Basically, just trying to protect my writing, not protect, but perfect my writing skills. And by that time, I had a little studio. So I was, in the studio writing every day, trying to see what I can come up with that I would like. And if I would like it, I know somebody else would like it.
And what type of material were you favoring?
Whatever touched my heart. Could be gospel, rock and roll. It doesn't matter. As long as I feel it's true to my heart, and I feel where a particular song is coming from, I can identify with it.
I see. It looks like, you have a credit for Rick James' Flag album that came out, in the later 80s, and also the Gap Band 8. You're still doing stuff with them then.
Mm-hmm.
How did that sort of change when the hits for both of those guys kind of started coming fewer and farther between? What did you see change in like the Gap Band or the Rick James camps?
I didn't see any change because I was busy doing my own thing. So, change. Only thing that changed was me. Like I said, perfecting my writing skills to becoming a producer, songwriter.
And you appeared on Pebbles' album, is that right?
Yeah, it was weird how that came out. We had just come off tour, and I just went into my apartment. I'm packing my clothes. I get a call from Charlie, locksmith. Hey, what you doing? Nothing. Can you come to the studio? Oh, okay. So I went to the studio. There was the making of Mercedes Boy. I put my 2 guitar parts down, went home, and the rest was history. The song did very well. I would like to say, just to give myself a pat on the back, having that Midas touch, I think I got that. I have part of that is within me, that Midas touch. Because everything I've been affiliated with has been a success. Everything.
I'm trying to recall, Fred, was that Pebbles? Was that a Jam Lewis production, or who did that?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah, I got to go check that out. But yeah, certainly hit big. I remember that.
Yeah. Yep.
Were there any players or producers that you took inspiration from, in the 80s?
Well, I love Leon Silvers, the way he did his production. He had the Midas touch. That dude had like 3 or 4 studios going on all at the same time, different projects. So I definitely admired that. And, in the camp that I was in, Total Experience, all of that talent, man. One day I was in the lobby practicing my guitar. Lonnie Simmons walked by and said, man, you playing all of them chords, man. I could write 20 songs with all of them chords. And I started thinking, huh? Simplicity. Because basically the people that buy your records, they don't know all that instrumentation. They know how to make the music makes them feel. If the music makes them feel good and happy, whatever their mindset is, if it goes in accordance with their mindset, they venture to buy it to make it, a part of their whole thing.
Did you ever meet or come close to working with Leon Silvers?
No, I never did. That was one of my dreams, to work with that dude. But I never got a chance to work with Leon Silvers. But I like his style, his musicianship, and the guys that he used to do his recordings, just like Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. How they compose their music in the different sets, from the verses to the chorus to the bridge. There are little intricate things that they will come up with, introduce the new segment of the song, I would say.
Yeah.
Kind of like walking from one room to another room, but in that transition period, or whatever goes on between those 2 points, always fascinated me.
Like the connective tissue.
Man, yes. That's very important.
Yeah.
It is, absolutely, yeah. I love that part.
So what'd you get into in the 90s?
Same thing, doing recording sessions, writing, practicing my writing. That's my music. My music. Did I what?
I was just going to ask if you, ended up touring with anybody else as well.
I did a few things with Rufus. A few things with Rufus. I did, I did Anita Baker, Same Old Love. From beginning to end, 365 days of the year. I did that song, but I didn't get the credit playing guitar, but that's me on guitar.
What happened on the credit?
Well, the 2 individuals that wrote the song, they had a publishing deal with Gilbert Music, and we had a friend a guy from Chicago. He was a singer. He introduced me to them, and they called me in to play guitar on their stuff. And who would know that Anita Baker picked the song up? So I never got the credit, but I did the song.
Yeah, I just had Andre Fisher was on, and I know you've done work with him. You mentioned Rufus, and he had some relationship early on with Anita Baker, at least.
Right.
Yeah. Man, I love those Rufus tracks. I mean, such great stuff. Who was involved when you worked on those tunes?
That was already set in stone, those parts. So it was just a matter of me just coming along and playing what Tony Maiden had put down and Ray Parker.
But in the was Bobby Watson involved, or who was in the band?
Yeah. Like I said, as far as guitar speaking is concerned, my part was just to learn what Tony Maiden had did and Ray Parker.
I got you. I'm just wondering who the personnel was in the band for those performances.
Andre Fisher, Bobby Watson, me playing guitar, several different cats. Was it Tony Patler played keyboards, and a couple other people I can't think of offhand, but basically that was it.
And you've worked on some other material where Andre Fisher was involved too, right?
No.
No?
Not that I can think of it at the moment. Well, you know something that I don't know?
Maybe something that you don't have credit for also, or you don't even have knowledge of.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought there was something jazz-oriented maybe that you guys worked on together.
No, No.
So what have been some of your most things that you worked on?
Besides my own smooth jazz CD, that was it.
Is that available for people to get a hold of?
Yeah, it's called Fred Jenkins Word of Mouth.
And how can they get that?
Amazon.
And what are they going to hear? What are they going to hear if they do get a hold of it?
Some nice, smooth jazz, easy listening music.
When did you record that, Fred?
In the late 90s, I think it was. Yeah.
Who do you really like in that genre?
Earl Klugh was one of my favorite guitar players outside of George Benson. Basically, that's it. Earl Klugh.
Yep, love those guys. Love Benson, man. He's still playing like fire.
I know. I love that man. I love Earl Klugh, laid back, how, his stuff is just, it's all occasions when you listen to his music. I never got a chance to meet Earl. I met George Benson at one point. Yeah.
You mentioned doing Tony's parts in the Rufus tracks. Are they tricky at all? Because a lot of people really hold Tony Maiden in high regard.
Well, I could play it, so it was very enjoyable playing with that group. It was very, very much enjoyable playing with them.
Fred, I'd like to ask interviews I do if they could pick 5 albums that would be the 5 if they could only hear 5 more forever. What would they be? So kind of your top 5 of all time. Who would you throw at me if I asked you that?
Michael Jackson, Thriller album, Toto. Gap Band for sure. Rick James, Val Young. You said 1?
5 albums. If you could only listen to 5 forever, what would they be?
Gap Band, Toto, Rick James, Prince, myself. That's it.
Is there a particular Prince album that's your favorite?
No, I like all of his stuff. No particular Gap Band albums that I like. I'm kind of like a balladeer. I like the way Charlie sings the ballads, as well as the funk stuff too.
Well, you must really be happy now that he does mostly ballads.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with Charlie lately, but have to check it out and see.
I was going to ask you if you were surprised at all that he came back so strong, I mean, he kind of had a whole second career as a balladeer.
Well, he's got a good team that he's working with that believes in him, that goes all out to make sure it is a success. So that's what every artist needs. If you got a strong team behind you, you can't be nothing but successful.
What accomplishment are you most proud of in the music business, Fred?
Oh, man. Scott, I couldn't even begin to tell you. Outside of myself, and, stuff I did with Rick and Val and Gap Band, just basically myself, man, not to be egotistical, but I love myself. I love what I do.
What are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, I'm still being creative, still writing. I have a little team that I work with.
Any chance we might hear something from you?
Yes. Yep.
You going to let me know?
You will. Yeah. You will be hearing it. Guaranteed.
All right. I hope so.
You will.
Very cool. So it sounds like probably smooth jazz kind of stuff might be your favorite genre rather than funk?
All of it. I have no preferences. Whatever hits me. If funk hits me, at that moment, that's what I come up with. If a ballad comes to me, that's what I do. Whatever comes to my mind.
Is there anything you would have done differently, from, let's say, from when you first got a taste of stardom with the Gap Band? Is there anything you would have done differently?
No. I think everything happens in accordance with the way it's supposed to happen.
What advice would you have for a young Fred Jenkins today? Somebody like a young Fred Jenkins that might be trying to start off with music today. What advice would you give him?
My advice to somebody like myself is to be true to yourself. And if that's what you want, go after it wholeheartedly. Go after it. Because they say when the student's ready, the teacher appears. So if you put your whole heart into what you do, something's good is going to come out of it.
All right. Well, Fred, I really appreciate talking to you. It's been great hearing about the Gap Band and Rick James and all that. And, I wish you future success and good health. And, again, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkinstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funkin' Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkinstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkinstuff.net, and linking through funkinstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkinstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkinstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.